for today, we have assembled a very diverse and interesting set of speakers to talk about the challenges and opportunities in the region and the programs that they are leading. We're going to kick it off with Simon Roland from GIZ, from the CASE program, who will set the context, followed by Gilles Pasquale from Ernst & Young, who will tell us about the UK ASEAN Low Energy Carbon Program. Following that, we will have Vesirpa Yarvanpal from the Energy Transition Partnership, talking about the role of collaboration in energy transitions. Following that, we'll have Graham Pugh from the Clean Power Hub, talking about the role of knowledge and expertise. And we will then circle back home to ADB. My colleague, David Elzinga, will talk about an exciting new initiative that ADB is developing to address the problem of what do we do with legacy coal-fired power plants. Following these presentations, we have invited two senior energy sector officials from ADB's client countries, from Thailand and from Cambodia, to talk about what they are trying to achieve in their own countries. And following that, we will open it up for Q&A. And please feel free to type in your questions into the chat box, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. With that, and with no further delay, let me turn the mic over to Simon.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the banks to organize this session. Today, my name is Simon Roland. I'm the director of the energy portfolio of GIZ in Thailand. And today, I wanted to share a few thoughts about the key challenges will help to set a little bit the scene about the context and feed the discussion that will follow with all of you. So first of all, I wanted to start by setting the topic of energy transition into a broader discussion, which is, of course, the fight against climate change and the objective to stay to the 1.5 degree target. As Pradeep just mentioned, we have seen a high number of pledges coming from all over the world. And what is interesting is we see that this is also starting to trickle down at the local level, including in Southeast Asia, with some ambitious neutrality target by companies and region in the region. However, it is also worth noting that so far no ASEAN countries has yet made a net zero pledges. What is the CASE program for clean, affordable, secure energy for Southeast Asia? Is a IKI funded program by the German Ministry for Environment. It's coordinated by GIZ and combine the expertise of a network of local think tanks, which are based in the 4 countries where we are operating: Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam, and also integrate the expertise of international renowned think tanks which are active in the energy transition. And I want to flag this because a lot of the work that we are producing is actually really coming from the bottom up. It's grounded into the reality of the country, and this is thanks to the contribution and the active work of a local think tank. We are also an aligned program of the Energy Transition Partnership, but I will let my colleague Sirpa talk more about that. What is the objective of CASE? The idea is how can we contribute to change and shift the narrative of the energy sector in Southeast Asia from a narrative which is strongly based on fossil fuel, on energy security, and on centralized power system towards one which is, and how do we do that? We basically we organize around 5 key outputs, which are quite integrated with one another. The first one is on research and evidence. What evidence is needed by decision makers to help feeding that discussion and to help convince key stakeholders that it is possible and it is beneficial to undertake and accelerate the energy transition today. We also want to work on cooperation, on transparency and mapping, because we know there's a huge number of intervention in the region, in the countries. So how can we map who does what where and identify duplication, identify synergies, and identify gaps which are not covered by anyone? We also want to broaden the energy transition beyond the energy sector. And That means talking and involving non-energy stakeholders which are impacted and which will benefit from the energy transition, in order to help them reap the benefit of this energy transition, but also to anticipate potential negative impact on the sector. I'm talking about job creation, I'm talking about health ministries, and so on and so forth. There is also the component on technical assistance, so specifically for energy stakeholders to support them in understanding and in undertaking that energy transition. And finally, there is a very strong communication angle, which is about sharing increasing the understanding and the ownership of the concept of energy transition among the population of Southeast Asia. When we started CASE, we wanted to take a step back and really go in depth into understanding of the energy transition in order to first identify the challenge and tailor our answers and activity based on those challenges. This was based on the top-down and bottom-up analysis. Top-down to also integrate the regional and supranational dimension of the energy transition, which we all know is essential, and bottom-up by really going in depth with our local partner in understanding the local context and local challenges which are preventing or slowing down the energy transition in each country. This led to the identification of 6 challenges, which I will expand a bit upon now. First, the policy challenge. In many countries, there's still an absence of long-term, very long-term coordinated policy vision or roadmap for renewables, which means that this also impact within the energy sector, but also beyond the energy sector, the understanding, the ownership, and therefore the action when it comes to the energy transition. This very silo structure of ministries of energies, even within the energy sector, means that there is less understanding of the co-benefits and the necessary to work together in order to tackle the many challenges which are associated with energy transition. There is a very strong, in Southeast Asia, a very strong focus on fossil fuel and on energy security. And this has 2 impacts. First of all, energy security is mostly understood from a country perspective, which means that there is a lack of willingness to work on regional interaction and collaboration. Of course, there are initiatives, but they remain relatively secondary compared to country processes. And the other impact of this focus on energy security means that people are still perceiving fossil fuel as the main option to ensure that security. And the dependent of that is that renewable energy continue to be perceived as unreliable and too expensive for consumers, while we know that is actually contrary to the reality around the world today. Coordination also means that the messages which is shared outside of the energy sector remains very much focused on fossil fuel. It means that there is not a consistent messages aligning all stakeholders and obviously the population towards a joint understanding of the energy transition. Often that discourse, that narrative is fixed by stakeholders that have an interest in maintaining the status quo. And that means that leads to a lot of confusion for a lot of stakeholders to actually the potential of the energy transition in Southeast Asia. There are also other type of non-technical challenges. We know that knowledge sharing and the lack of knowledge sharing is something which is still preventing learning from one another. And that lack of available data is also preventing us from really have a state-of-the-art long-term planning. And limited capacities are also preventing, at different degrees along the whole value chain of the energy sector, from planning to project implementation, are preventing the acceleration of the energy transition. And one of the dimensions which we have identified is the fact that the lack of an independent knowledge holder for the energy transition means that a lot of the expertise come from outside and is actually not fully aligned with national and regional interests. And this is why we have chosen to really work with our political partners and with our local implementing partners together to actually identify solutions to the issues which are embedded to the local reality of each of the country. Obviously, there are investment challenges, but I think my colleagues will be probably better than me to talk about that. High cost of capital, perceived high risk, which is often associated with policy barriers, and weak technical understanding of renewable energy project-based finance, which means that local financing institutions are not taking the space that they should take in the development of the sector. Finally, there are obviously grid and technical challenges. I mean, there is no denying, and also regional market integration challenges. I think the benefits of we think the benefits of a regional grid are not yet well understood and well shared. And we know that it's playing a huge dimension, a huge role in, for example, the process which is happening now in Europe, and that the integration of the grid has played a huge role in facilitating increased share of variable renewable energies in different countries. The planning and the market design and system operations are still not always based on the state of the art of the trends of technology sector, which means that a lot of utilities, a lot of decision makers still perceive technical challenges of the integration of renewable as unsurmountable, as almost impossible to tackle, while we know that solution actually exists for those challenges. I also, finally, this is my last slide, wanted to say a few words about what CASE does to try to tackle those challenges. So you will see that our activities are really geared around the 3 pillars: research and evidence building, policy support and dialogue, and knowledge sharing and communication. On the research side, we will focus on energy scenario and co-benefits with the broad stakeholders that we are involving in each country. So it's a really common development process in order to develop framework and answers which are tailored to the local context and increase ownership from the stakeholders. We also work with our network of think tanks and in cooperation with our political partners in driving that dialogue cross-sectoral, so that not only the energy sector, but also beyond the energy sector, people are on board of the energy transition. And finally, we also support knowledge sharing, and we hope we are currently developing an interactive energy transition knowledge hub that will support this dialogue, that will support this information sharing, and we hope it will be directly useful to all of you. And we have a very strong dimension on communication. And I would like to point out that tonight, the CASE program is organizing a side event on evidence-based communication. And I strongly encourage you to join, to learn more about what we do, but also to learn from you about your expectation and what you are doing as well. So that is all for me, and I thank you very much for attention.
Thank you, Simone. Thanks for laying out the financial and non-financial challenges we face as we try to realize energy transitions. And you've laid out things like regulatory inertia, lack of planning, communication awareness, and I'm sure the other speakers will be highlighting other related non-finance barriers as well. But let's move on to Gilles, who'll be talking to us about greening the financial system. Gilles, Mike, yours.
Thank you, Pradeep, and good morning, everyone. This is Gilles here. I'm a partner at EY, looking after renewable energy and green finance in Southeast Asia, and I'm the program director for the ASEAN Low Carbon Energy Program of the UK government. Greening the flows of finance is a central part of the UK COP26 presidency, both in terms of meeting the $100 billion a year commitment of public finance and ensuring that the investment flows of private finance take account of climate risks and opportunities. And the UK does that in a number of ways. Domestically, the UK announced in March that the central bank's mandate would include environmental sustainability and net zero compatibility. For that, by 2025, the UK would make alignment with TCFD's recommendation mandatory across the economy. Internationally, the UK has used the presidency of the G7 to ensure that to make the similar announcement that the group would also move towards mandatory TCFD. And other initiatives such as Mark Carney, the COP26 Green Finance Envoy, driving this agenda with the announcement of the Glasgow Finance Alliance for Net Zero. So the path towards net zero transition in financial services is clearly required. And the UK is supporting developing countries to embrace that opportunity with programs like the Low Carbon Energy Program. If I can control the slides. So what the Low Carbon Energy Program is, it's a 3-year ODA program of the UK government that's aimed at promoting green finance and energy efficiency. And we do that through policy support, capacity building, technical assistance, or market developments across 6 markets in Southeast Asia. And the program is delivered in a consortium by EY, the Carbon Trust, and IMC Worldwide. What are we doing in practice? We've been, and the program has started 2 years ago. I think, Pradeep, you refer to 2019. This was the year when we started. We have about a year left on the program, subject to further extension. But we've been working essentially with the ministries of finance, the central banks, the Securities and Exchange Commissions, the Ministry of Energy, on the topic of increasing the demand for green finance flows. That means more renewable energy, and greening the financial system, which is fundamental. The path to net zero and greening the economy, greening the financial system is not the prerogative of a single ministry or a single entity, but it does require at the country level a lot of coordination. The Ministry of Finance itself cannot commit. The central bank cannot commit by itself. The Department of Energy cannot commit by itself. But all these entities coming together can develop a strategy to net zero, both for the energy system, but more generally for the economy. And on that aspect, I would commend the Philippines that set up the Green Force that combines a lot of these entities in looking holistically at how do you green the economy. And the program has been supporting the Green Force on the development of their sustainable finance roadmap. Lots of capacity building on sustainable finance, and on that point, so that's working with the central banks, training the financial institutions on climate change risks, on disclosures, on portfolio stress testing, working with the Securities and Exchange Commissions on organizing capacity building on sustainable finance for the corporates that are member of the exchanges. And on this, I would perhaps one lesson learned is the need to remain flexible for long-dated programs. I mean, when we started in 2019, it was all about green bonds. And we did support a lot of corporates in their roadmap. But over the last 2 years, there's been developments, and it's more about sustainable bonds, transition bonds, SDG-linked bonds. So green finance moves quickly, and programs need to evolve and adapt accordingly. On the energy efficiency side, we've been working quite closely with the department, ministries of energy, the relevant department, especially DEDE in Thailand and the DOE in the Philippines, on strengthening the policy and regulations to enhance the framework for energy efficiency. We're supporting pilot projects in a number of countries. And of course, as an ODA program, the last aspect is to include gender and inclusion, mainstreaming measures in everything we do. And on that, I guess it's another positive lesson is that the stakeholders are paying attention. They're all looking for ways to include gender in sustainable finance, gender and climate. And there is a positive momentum on that topic as well, which is not easy. So perhaps if I can share a couple of examples, we supported the Bank of Agriculture, BASE, in Thailand with issuing a green bond. Malaysia launched its Malaysia Sustainable Finance Initiative last year, Capital Markets Malaysia. In Vietnam, there was the Develop an Energy Efficiency Foundation concept. And if you look at the Green Force in the Philippines, adopting, becoming a member of the NGFS, or supporting the TCFD. So, a couple of lessons after 2 years. The momentum is absolutely there. There is a lot of requests coming from the government stakeholders. And that's only accelerating, post the pandemic and in a COP26 years. So yes, there are difficulties, and the road to net zero will take time, but countries are very keen. They need support. There is a need to engage at the local level. I think Simon mentioned this, because the solutions are country specific, they are bespoke. But there's also a need to engage at the ASEAN level, whether it's on ACMF or the working capital, the WCCMD on the finance side, or on the energy side with the integration of the grid. So the issues in ASEAN are unique and require a bespoke solution both at the country level and the regional. But I think from the program's point of view, there's a general feeling of positiveness in that there is a lot of demand and the momentum is there. So happy to broach on these subjects during the Q&A. Back to you, Pradeep.
Thank you, Gilles. Thanks very much for a quick tour of all the achievements and the progress that's been made across the region. In particular, the issuance of what we call ESG bonds, or green, social, and sustainability bonds, is a very exciting new trend in the region, and we hope to see more of those issuances. Well, moving on, I think we need to also talk about stakeholders. Transition is not something that any entity can do on its own. So let's bring in Ms. Sirpa Yarwanpa to talk about collaboration in the context of transitions. Sirpa, over to you.
You muted, Sirpa.
Thank you, Pradeep. Can you hear me now?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. Let me just get my slides back. There you go. So thank you very much. And thanks to Asian Development Bank also for the opportunity for the Southeast Asian Energy Transition Partnership to speak at this regional session on getting Southeast Asia on a clean energy fast track. I'm Sirpa Järvenpää, Director of the Energy Transition Partnership here in Southeast Asia. Let me first give you a picture on what ETP is and how we think we can contribute to collaboration to fast tracking energy transition. So ETP is a consortium that brings together governments of France, United Kingdom, Germany, Canada, and philanthropies such as Children's Investment Fund Foundation, IKEA Foundation, Sequoia Climate Foundation, and others. This unique consortium of diverse members work together as a collaborative platform. And the United Nations Office for Project Services is the fund manager, bringing in UN transparent and UN multinational benefits. So ETP brings convening power, for making bolder efforts at enabling energy transition on various fronts. In the region, we work across stakeholder communities, ranging from governments, civil society, private sector forces that are critical for reaching the tipping point in pursuit of energy transition and the objective of reaching 100% renewable energy systems by 2050. ETP works through two major avenues. The first avenue being through enhanced collaboration by bringing stakeholders to partnership to generate stronger force behind the efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris climate goals. The second avenue, ETP works through its technical assistance and capacity building program designed to break through the specific barriers to energy transition. In the context of the COP26 Energy Transition Council, development partners are effectively interacting with the government authorities and civil society to build a shared roadmap of priority actions. Activities within ETP's first avenue of engagement, ETP is a keen partner to the COP26 ETC process to increase renewable energy investments and reduce carbon intensity of the economies. Energy transition, as you know, presents a very complex goal and that has lots of implications that permeate through the economy and societies that call for deployment of the best practices in collaboration. One such mechanism is ETP itself. It is bringing partners with diverse perspectives and approaches for accomplishing the shared goals. And these partners come together, why? To reduce transaction costs, to achieve the energy transition and just transition goals, to increase capacity to influence and gain ground for energy transition, to use efficient and innovative and transparent implementation methods to bring about results, and to bring stakeholders together through collaborative platforms. We engage with our sister organizations such as CASE, and Simon Roland spoke just before me, that support think tanks and evidence-based communications on energy transition on the one hand. And we engage with other sister organizations such as CSAF, the Southeast Asian Clean Energy Facility, that supports the private sector through catalytic capital investment resources on the other hand. ETP in its membership and by extension its convening activities fosters the synergies among these forces to bring together the private sector, the civil society, the government sector as a backbone to the Southeast Asian energy transition by engaging the stakeholders from these corners of the energy transition to develop a shared vision and create demand for low carbon energy systems in the region. Together, these forces make a powerful alliance that fosters a shift to a new climate regime, like a new Green Deal for Southeast Asia, by supporting the voices of the civil society and creating demand for clean and low carbon economies, by building capacities for government and strategic decision making in favor of low carbon systems, and by marshalling risk capital for demonstrative and confidence building energy transition investments from public and private sources. The second avenue of ETP's engagement relates to technical assistance and capacity building work. And it is designed to harness collaborative approaches as well. For example, to strengthen the enabling policies in Vietnam under the COP26 Energy Transition Dialogue, there is an opportunity to conduct a review of the coal abatement scenarios to culminate to a shared abatement scenario with shared assumptions on the technological and financial requirements and on the economic and social implications to offer a viable and a sound option to coal-fired power generation and thereby dramatically reduce greenhouse gas emissions. While ETP will lead this effort, all engaged partners will be involved and play important roles. A second example of ETP's technical assistance engagement comes from Indonesia, where ETP supports the design of the Indonesian main Jawa Bali control center upgrade to facilitate and foster expansion of renewable energy in the energy mix and its safe and reliable integration into distribution and consumption. Again, this support provides a critical connector, access to technology that is critical for all other investments in the renewable energy and all other support to facilitating grid modernization. Efforts to expand the smart grids to break through the barrier that grids place on energy transition rely on the upgraded capacity of the control center. A third example focuses on knowledge development. As energy transition is underpinned by rapid advancement of technology, science, and the concepts behind these call for sharing of information and as a fundamental condition if we are to achieve energy transition goals in time. ETP is setting up an energy transition roundtable where it works with its partners, CASE for instance, to create a collaborative learning platform for sharing pilot testing of concepts and global best practices among peer practitioners, creating a community around open sharing of knowledge to rapidly interact and capitalize on lessons and successes around the world. Our fourth example is focused on addressing the significant underinvestment in energy efficiency, the first fuel to reduce carbon intensity in the region's economies. Energy efficiency innovation window that ETP is setting up provides an effective way for ETP to support promising innovative approaches with grant funding and business development support. With partners such as Private Financing Advisory Network, or PFAN, and the Southeast Asian Clean Energy Facility, CSAF, ETP helps support project development with grants and business development tools for developers with limited capacity or experience to design bankable projects and improving efficiency. And it supports access to energy efficiency finance, creating better linkages between the energy efficiency projects and the investors by supporting bundling of similar technologies, connecting project intermediaries under ESCO style, super ESCO style approaches, and supporting measurement and verification of the energy savings-based cash flow streams, and enabling innovative products such as de-risking and energy savings insurance. Across the region, important parties are coming together and rallying around the green goals to energy transition. Pledges of carbon neutrality by China, Japan, and South Korea have tremendous demonstration effects for the Southeast Asian countries to declare their own 2050 carbon neutrality goals. It also is a region that showcases massive potential for renewable energy, resulting in new jobs and opportunities and economic development and a thrive in Asia. With energy demand in the region forecast to double by 2035, and we have just recently heard of the managed blackouts in Manila, Southeast Asia needs to rapidly ramp up private and public investment in renewable energy and energy efficiency to ensure clean and healthy future for the region and also for the world. This ramping up hinges on expanding knowledge and leadership across the stakeholders, including encouraging policymakers to promote the right investment environment and legal environments, and promote businesses to make the investments into clean energy, and to support the efforts of the civil society so as to underscore the demand for rapid transformation. Powerful forces of the civil society, government, and private sector need to work together in concert to reach the region's tipping point in energy transition to achieve a clean and productive basis for growth for the region's increasing population. So thank you for your attention, and thank you again to ADB for this opportunity. Pradeep, back to you.
Thank you, Sirpa. Clearly, ETP is a very exciting initiative, and it's great to see philanthropic capital and resources being deployed. At ADB, we often talk about what are the new sources of finance that we need to crowd in, and a couple of them really stand out is large institutional money, sovereign wealth funds, large pension funds. We haven't seen a lot of them actually getting involved in the clean energy space. And the other big source of support is philanthropic capital. So it's wonderful to see that this experiment is starting up, and we look forward to seeing the results of this. Well, let's move on to the next sort of major pillar within the transition challenge, which is the role of knowledge and expertise. There's a really exciting initiative, the Clean Power Hub, and we've got Graham Pugh to talk to us about it. Graham, over to you.
Thank you very much, Pradeep, and it's a pleasure to be here with colleagues with whom I've had a chance to speak before and learn about their activities. And hello to everyone watching. My name is Graham Pugh. I'm with Propel Clean Energy Partners, and we have been developing the Clean Power Hub. And I'm excited to share with you not only the hub, but the role the hub can play as a technical assistance accelerator for Southeast Asia. The Clean Power Hub is managed by Propel. It's funded by SIF and with the support of other institutions. And we've heard earlier from Simon and from Sirpa about the importance of knowledge sharing. There's a lack of knowledge sharing, limited capacity, the need to be sensitive to local realities, and overall the importance of enhanced collaboration and technical assistance and capacity building. These are all words that we use and we've talked about a lot, but our feeling with the Clean Power Hub is that we need something of a new paradigm. And so even Pradeep in introducing this spoke of knowledge sharing. We need to go beyond knowledge sharing, and we need to take the knowledge and convert it into action. Of course, that's what all of us want, but the question is how do we actually do it? We feel that if you can take the best international expertise on clean power and share it with some of the latest innovations in online knowledge sharing, that you can identify the biggest problems that people face, and you can curate the existing resources to create practical how-to guides, which is one step. But then you actually also have to provide connections to peers and experts. You have to have the interchange between people so they learn from each other, they have access to the experts. And the how-to guides are actually step-by-step ways to learn about the things that you need to do in clean power to prepare you to take action on clean power. But branching out from the guides, here's the community forum and peer networks, and then professional development and executive education. And these are tailored to local circumstances. So we're developing a professional development course in Indonesia on corporate purchasing of renewables. We know other countries in the region have made great strides. Vietnam is piloting PPAs now. I'd love to see Indonesia move in that direction. So you can start to lay the ground for those types of activities. And then we have Ask an Expert, which is free technical assistance, limited technical assistance for professionals who are actually trying to get the work done. This is an integrated suite of offerings from the Clean Power Hub, but how does it relate to what we've been talking about today? The Clean Power Hub is a platform, and in that it's a tool. And what we need is the expert organizations who provide the information that gets put onto the tool. And then we need the practitioners, right? We need the people who receive it, and you have to link them together. We have expert organizations going directly to practitioners, but it's normally through actual engagement. Well, in the last year with COVID, actual engagement face-to-face has been extremely limited. We're now in this virtual world. It's offered, in a way, a unique opportunity for all of us to have meetings like this with far more people taking part in ASEF than they have when it was in person, because now they don't have to travel. There are some limitations, we know, but it's opened up new ways of doing things. So we think having a virtual component that brings the practitioners into contact with the expertise is important. Well, what's the role of the existing organizations? Well, the model really is that you need to fund those organizations, you need to convene the practitioners, and then we have a platform to help. Right. So if the Clean Power Hub guides persist, they're always there to be seen. They're not long publications, right? They're tailored. They can be tailored to individual needs. If you have professional development courses, if you have webinars or other things, you can have those in the community forum where the Q&A stays, right? Right now we have the Q&A. People will have to watch the video to hear the Q&A. Most webinars, you run out of time at the end, right? And so there are only a couple questions. But if you capture that in the forum, people can see the questions, they can see the answers. They can then afterwards talk about those things. You can create this peer interaction. That's the goal. So we feel we are very much aligned with the work that CASE and ETP are doing, and others as well. But what we'd like to do is provide this platform that hopefully can enhance the work. And that's what we mean by a technical assistance accelerator. Just a few insights that we think we've learned. and this ties to what I've been saying, we think that technical assistance needs to stick. We have too many webinars, workshops, and reports without the follow-on dialogue and interaction. We need to create an ongoing interaction. Practitioners don't need to learn. Learning is not the objective. Action is the objective. It's learning to do something, right? There's a lot of learning going on, not enough action. We need a platform that encourages that. There's a need for speed. We know that. Our timelines are not right in the region. 60% fossil fuel by 2030 is not what's needed. So the innovation that we need is in the speed of addressing the challenges. It's not so much the technologies need to be further developed, although that will happen and that will be good. Costs will continue to go down. But we need innovation in driving the changes necessary to adopt the current technologies faster. This is what we all have to try to do. The other thing I'll just note is we hear very positive high-level statements, but these are the gaps that we've talked about, right? There's a gap between those goals and the work on the ground. The people on the ground have to be doing the implementation. And if there's a gap between the high level and the work on the ground, we need to try to bridge that gap, right? This is breaking across the silos horizontally, but also vertically, right? Between the leaders and the people on the ground. And finally, and it almost goes without saying, and maybe it's a little provocative on my part, in a crowd that has a lot of among peers who have a lot of resources, but donors and TA providers need to cooperate more to make every dollar go further. I won't point even to the ones in this room, but we know there are all kinds of bilateral programs. We've seen it very recently where they're all doing very similar things with governments, much of it overlapping, much of it behind NDAs and not shared. And it's duplicative, and we're not making the best use of funds, and we need to find ways to break that down so that we can share further. That's all I'll say. You can find more in the background slides, and we hope you'll visit cleanpowerhub.net, and I hope we can be of service to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Thanks for that presentation. I think role of knowledge, application of knowledge, and actually, as you mentioned, democratization of knowledge is going to be a big part of driving the transition. I mean, just 10 years, I've been involved with ASIF for over 10 years. And, initially you had to actually spend the effort and the time, put on a suit and turn up in Manila to listen to the panels at ASIF. And now people sit at home and they're dialing in or logging in, and you've got grandmothers and you've got school kids and you've got men and women and everybody. You don't have to be a subject matter expert to get into the room. I think this is another example of how we're using modern digital tools to increase access to knowledge. Thanks very much. So let's move on and come back to ADB. I'd like to invite my colleague, David Elzinga, to talk about a new initiative that we're working on.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Pradeep. And it's a pleasure to be part of ASEF again this year and to learn from our partners in the region on all the work that they're doing. So I want to focus today on one specific aspect. I think if we look at the overall work that needs to be done in the energy sector, it's incredibly broad, but I want to focus on one key aspect, and that's on coal, the use of coal for power generation. So if we look in the region or globally, we see that coal power has remained as a high share in power production, but we're seeing some encouraging aspects. We're seeing in the US and in Europe, we're starting to see coal shares go down in electricity generation. But unfortunately, if we look to Asia, and we see that coal remains a tremendously high in its share in power generation, and we're also seeing a fair amount of coal power in the pipeline. We're encouraged to see some countries putting moratoriums around building more coal, but still there's a lot there. So we really need to look at some of the legacy generation in coal power and see how can we deal with that. Because if we don't address the existing plants, they're going to produce power, and therefore emissions for a very long time. So I want to highlight something that we're working on right now. We're in a pre-feasibility stage, and we're looking at legacy coal-fired power plants and how can we accelerate their retirement. So we know that coal-fired power is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions that exists today. And they must be removed from the power sector in order to meet our global targets. And what is important about that is it's not transferring from one company to another. A lot of companies, or a number of companies, are doing that, and they're trying to make their balance sheets look clean. But if they just transfer it to someone who's going to operate it, that does nothing for the climate. So we really need to get them to be retired. So we're looking at a concept that leverages both public and private sector money to try to find a fair and equitable way. And one of the ways that we're looking at that is we're trying to build a fund, basically a financing partnership that includes investments from the private sector, from the public sector, and especially some level of concessional funds, so we can make a financing mechanism that's very, very competitive. This would be used for two parts that are within the energy transition mechanism. One is a clean energy facility, and that's going to support new generation of either renewables or new assets like storage or grids that can support more clean energy in the system. But I think the more innovative and interesting part is the carbon reduction facility. And this here will acquire coal plants with the sole purpose of retiring them early. And in that context, we'll use the very competitive funds to allow us to finance this more competitively than if they remain with the existing sponsor. And therefore, we can operate them for a much shorter amount of time. So that goes to my third bullet here. It's a managed retirement process. And this is important because many of these economies have growing power demand. And in that context, the thought of removing power generation from their system causes them concern because they need that power for their economic growth. So when we combine a managed removal from the system together with deploying renewable generation and other clean energy assets, we believe we can deliver both an economic and reliable power system that while reducing GHG emissions. So we're doing the technical and financial feasibility right now, and we're taking a look at Indonesia, Philippines, and at a desktop level in Vietnam. And the last point I want to highlight about this is that we're also including just transition activities. We want to make sure that the communities and the people who have livelihoods associated with coal plants are also given support to transition to other opportunities. And this is very important. We don't want to see people left behind just from purely a developmental perspective. And I want to highlight that. So I shared the coal, and this work on coal is part of a broader landscape of some technical assistance that we're working on. And so we are looking at renewables and energy efficiency and really focusing on how the private and public sector can work together. I believe it was Gilles or Simon mentioned earlier how it's important to have both those actors. It's not enough for just the public sector to support all this. So the coal work is part of this new technical assistance. The other part is looking at energy sector governance and transparency. And in this context, trying to make sure that the markets are transparent so that there can be full competition. We see too often that interested groups do side deals and things like that. And what that means is that the best prices and sometimes the best quality of work is not delivered. And we believe that having a strong competition can really bring the most cost-effective and best technologies. And the last point that we're focusing on is regional grid power integration. This is work that we've done for many years, but we still see the strong value of leveraging interconnection to share resources, both from simply utilizing those resources to the most, so that it's more cost effective, but also looking at, say, the hydropower in Laos. How can that support other countries as they deploy renewable technology? In some cases, they can simply buy power and not have to invest immediately. So I just wanted to give a very quick snapshot of the work that we're doing, and the full presentation, where I've provided much more details, will be included on the website, and you can download that to learn more about what we're doing through this upcoming technical assistance. So I'll pass it back to you, Pradeep. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Thanks very much. And just going back to what Graham mentioned earlier, this program is a very small program. We're looking at about $4 to $6 million over the next 4 years. And again, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel or be redundant or overlap. As the audience has heard, there are several programs that are working on these issues. And so we are very committed to working with our partners and finding areas where we can bring true value and leverage all of the expertise and the resources that our partners bring to the table. Now, we have heard from a range of donors and investors and experts in the field. Now, what I'd like to do is turn to government officials, senior government officials who are at the forefront of this transition. We're very fortunate to have two of the countries represented here today. We've got an official from Thailand and from Cambodia. I'd like to turn to Ms. Monlika Sompranam. She's a director for energy cooperation at DED, which focuses on renewables and energy efficiency in Thailand. Kun Monlika, if I could ask you, Thailand has always been seen as a regional best practice leader, a pioneer when it came to renewable energy deployment and energy efficiency. At the same time, if I might be provocative, I might also say that in the last few years, most observers would say that Thailand has actually slowed down a bit in terms of its renewable energy deployment. So perhaps you could tell us about where you are in the transition space and what are your priorities in the next 2 to 3 years, and also perhaps link back to what you've heard from all these different speakers and see if they can be of any assistance to Thailand's ambitions. Monlika?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Pradeep, for inviting me to join this event. So, as you invite us to share like about what we are doing right now about the EE and RE development in Thailand. First of all, I would like to let you know the overview of our plan in Thailand. So Thailand is well aware of the challenge of energy transitions and COVID-19 pandemic. So the Ministry of Energy has set up the Thailand Integrated Energy Blueprints with a 70-year implementation period from the year 2018 up to 2037. All plans are well integrated with the fundamental concepts of bio-circular green economies or in models, or in short we call BCG. The BCG model has been introduced to underpin Thailand 4.0 policy as a strategy to guide the economics and social developments with the integrations of bioeconomy, circular economy, and green economy through the promotion of sustainable agriculture, green energy, and responsible consumption and productions, ensuring the conservation and the sustainable utilization of biodiversity and protecting environments and ecosystem. Furthermore, the Ministry of Energy has developed and combined variant policy and strategy, including Energy 4.0, which is based on the combination of clean energy technology, distributed generation, energy efficiency, storage, electric vehicle, and digital technology that already being deployed on a large scale. And also we have the 4D and 1E strategy consisting of the digitalization, decarbonization, decentralization, deregulation, and electrification. So this on initiative recover the Thailand economy for the COVID-19 and to prepare readiness for energy transition periods. For decisions, our department has to place high priority on development of clean energy. Is this main area of our national agenda, as we would like to become a low carbon society or carbon neutral nations, which can contribute to reduction global climate change. And as an energy transition is a pathway toward transformations of energy sector from fossil-based to zero carbon, so it means that we have to reduce energy-related carbon dioxide emission to limit climate change. Therefore, renewable energy efficiency measure can potentially achieve 90% of the required carbon reductions. So allow me refer to our two plans, which are a part of the current Thailand integrated energy blueprints, which are responsible by the EDE. First, alternative energy development plan, which aim to increase renewable energy share for 30% by the 2030, and energy efficiency plans, which aim to reduce energy intensity by 30% in the year 2037 compared to the 2010 levels. Moreover, we are in the planning process to move forward to carbon neutrality. Therefore, RE will be much more aggressive and become a major part of national energy master plans. In order to increase the share of RE, the community power plants project is one of our priority. The project target to produce 150 megawatt from VSPP that producing electricity from either biomass or biogas. To be amplified, the 75 megawatt will be obtained from the biomass VSPP and another 75 megawatt of the electricity procurement will be obtained from the biogas VSPP. The community power plants projects must be 90% owned by the private company, and 10% of ownership must be under the community enterprise or community enterprise network, which consists of at least 200 households. The community power plant scheme aims to generate more income to the farmer in rural area and improve their quality of life. Next, I would like to introduce the program about the ESTO for the government agency. The project will promote and encourage government agency to develop their own clean energy project, especially solar rooftop in the government building, and then the replacement of high efficient equipment, material, and related system can be done to reduce the cost of energy for the building. Is now in the process of approval by the cabinet. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one more project that we are doing right now. Is the building energy code. The building development review and forth to design and manage the new buildings under the new regulation. The element of new building to be regulated includes building material, air conditioning system, lighting, hot water, renewable energy, and building structure, with the expectations of cutting electricity consumption by 10%. The BEC covers 9 types of buildings with education, office, theater, convention hall, entertainment, department store, hotel, hospital, and condominium. The enforcement of BEC was officially announced in March 2021, and it was enforced separately by the size of the building in 3 steps. This year, new building with an area greater than 10,000 square meters will be subject to the cost. The new building with an area larger than 5,000 square meters will have to comply with the cost in the year 2072. And the last step, the new buildings larger than 2,000 square meters will come under the code in the year 2033. And I would like to inform you that right now Thailand promotes the electric vehicle in the view of energy transition period. The use of EV is one of the most important tools to reduce fossil fuel-based fuel consumptions. So the government's National Electric Vehicle Policy Committee has set the direction and target to drive the use of production of EV in Thailand. The committee announced 30 by 30 policy, which is 30% of on auto production in the year 2030 will be xEV. In this connection, the EDE is still also focused on the impact of this increasing number of EV, which will affect to the biofuel productions that the government has been promoting right now. Therefore, the study on impact mitigation and find the solution for biofuel production and its supply chain is also a topic that are interested for now till the next few years. To sum up, Thailand to be the carbon neutrality country by increasing the share of renewable energy in the total final energy consumption and increase the energy efficiency improvements, as well as using the technology and smart system to improve the capability to drive toward energy transition period. We believe that the energy transition will be enabled by information technology, smart technology, policy framework, market instruments, and international cooperation that can help to increase the share of renewable energy and energy efficiency improvement in the power sector. So with the new paradigm must be the base of the combination of energy, clean technology, distributed generation, energy efficiency, storage, electric vehicle, and digital technology that is already being deployed on a large scale. That is we hope that we can achieve our goal. This is all for me that I would like to share with you. So thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Kun Moonlika, for an exhaustive presentation. So clearly, Thailand has a lot of plans underway. In recent months, Vietnam has been the darling of the world when it comes to clean energy deployment with its huge increase in solar PV and potentially soon onshore wind deployment. But we look forward to seeing more and more news items coming out of Thailand in terms of your deployment of clean energy as well. So let me now move on to another country which has been in the news quite a lot. I'd like to welcome Excellency T. Norin, Secretary of State, Ministry of Mines and Energy from Cambodia. So as you may all know, Cambodia set a record in the ASEAN in 2019 for the lowest procurement price for solar PV at 3.8 cents, at a time when most countries in the region were procuring solar power at between 7 to 9 cents. So this has really unleashed a very large solar PV expansion in the country, but at the same time, there are persistent challenges within the sector. Well, so Excellency, if you could tell us about, from your seat as the Secretary of State, where are you heading? What are your plans and priorities? And perhaps link back to the programs you heard today in terms of how they might help you. Excellency, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Pradeep. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank ADB and Pradeep for allowing me to participate in this forum and giving me opportunity to provide comment on this session. I thank all speakers for sharing an update and insights related to the clean energy development in Southeast Asia. I am very pleased to share some sort an update from Cambodia related to the thematic of this session. As most of the world going green, and as the Kingdom of Cambodia is a party of UNFCCC and had submitted its intended nationally determined contribution, Cambodia recognized the need in contributing to the abatement of global climate change. We understand that the abatement of global climate change is common, but differentiate responsibility and respective capability, along with the right to sustainable development of developing countries. With this regard, Ministry of Mine Energy of Cambodia need to integrate clean energy and energy efficiency into Cambodia future power development for contributing the lowering of greenhouse gas emission intensity. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 years ago, during the dry season of 2019, Cambodia faced a daily scheduled power cut for 72 days continuously. This power shortage and power cut were caused by the actual power demand of Cambodia exceed the PDP projection and an unexpected drop. Learning from this power shortage and power cut, we understand what important of the security and reliability of power supply. To solve this issue, at that time, we prepare an emergency plan to identify the projects that we need to develop urgently to provide Cambodia safe with power supply. Now, the urgent project to guarantee no power shortage and power cut in Cambodia in the near future has been signed off. While solving the 2009 issue, we got the support from ADB to study our PDP until 2014 to determine the long-term development vision of our power sector. This PDP study will find a way to integrate the energy efficiency and renewable energy into the PDP to contribute the global warming mitigation, but also to ensure adequacy, reliability, and affordability of power supply for Cambodia. Ladies and gentlemen, before 2020, when the Cambodia economy was growing at an average rate of 7% per annum, the electricity demand increased between 15 to 23%. According to the latest IMF projection, Cambodia economy outlook is anticipated to rebound to the third fastest growing economy in ASEAN region in the next year, and then become the region fastest growing economy forecasted at 6.9% in 2025. So if we take this IMF estimate into consideration, we would expect a rapid growth of electricity demand again rebound to the pre-COVID-19 level or even higher. The royal government of Cambodia recognized that expanding energy access to modern, affordable, and reliable form of energy while lowering the greenhouse gas emission intensity is essential to pursue our country's social and economic development agenda and aspiration. The key objectives in our energy sector are providing adequacy, reliability, security, stability, and affordability to the consumer, as well as efficiency use of energy in the whole country. With ADB support, some solar farm project has been developed. Giving Cambodia solar potential, the country is on track to have up to 170 megawatts of utility-scale solar capacity installed by this year. We have also started to discuss on the development of the first wind power project in Cambodia. To lower greenhouse gas emission, we have worked with the ADB to develop the utility-scale battery energy storage system to open opportunity for integrating more variable renewable energy, and at the same time working with different partners to develop energy efficiency project as well. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Ministry of Mines and Energy Cambodia, I would like to inform that the ministry has a goal to increase utilization of clean energy to the maximum extent possible to contribute the mitigation of climate change. But at the same time, we need to ensure that our future development is to meet both the future maximum demand with high reliability and at a minimum cost while maintaining energy security. This is what we are cooperating with ADB to do in the preparation of 2020-2040 Power Development Plan. Cambodia is committed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the country, including from electricity generation. To reach this objective, we are expecting more renewable energy generation sources and energy efficiency projects in the coming year. This, of course, implies more opportunity for private investors and government to work together to mobilize more investment and finance for such a transformation to be happen. With this, I would like to bring to your attention that climate change is a global threat, and everyone has to be part of the solution. Frankly speaking, I see there is an overwhelming concentration of the debate on the power sector. This is good, but not at all enough to solve our climate change issue. To reach the IEA Sustainable Development Scenario, all the sectors such as agriculture, steel, cement, and all the heavy industry, aviation, land and water transportation, housing and urbanization, construction, just to name a few, will have to be part of the conversation and the debate as well. Before I end my remark, I would like to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to ADB for the invaluable assistance to Cambodia energy development and transition thus far. I'm looking forward to hearing from our dear panelists here and wish the year as ASEAN Clean Energy Forum will be happen very productive and fruitful session. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Thanks very much. And we do have time for some questions. And I see that our listeners who've been very patient have sent in a few questions. So let me take a couple of them. The first one is from Sunita Dubey. So David, this is perhaps something that you can address. The question is, what about the new build coal-fired power plants in the pipeline? How would one approach those?
Yeah, no, thanks for that question. 2 points. I think the one thing that we are seeing is there are moratoriums on new builds where countries are looking at their power system development and saying, no, we're not going to build any more coal. One of the challenges is that they have a lot of coal already in the pipeline, and investment has been made, or financial decisions or contracts have been signed. And in this context, it can be exceptionally costly to get out of those contracts. So we are looking at a mechanism that can address one part of the coal power, legacy coal power. We don't think we can solve all of that. And that's why it's great to have, a conversation today with development partners. And we are speaking to other development partners who can help us with how can we solve those plants that are not built yet, but that are coming. So the moratorium is a good start, but there are probably other mechanisms that are needed to potentially prevent those plants from being built. And I think the best way to do that is provide an alternative. And that could be, let's find a way to replace those coal with renewables, because as the Excellency from Cambodia said, reliability and adequacy is so important.
Thanks, David. Thanks, David. Another question. This one is on gender and inclusion, and it refers. Can the speaker on ASEAN LECP cite concrete examples on how gender and inclusion measures are being implemented across its interventions? This question is from Karmansita Bariso. Jules, I suspect it's you.
Do you want me to take that? And perhaps before I answer the question, a very quick addition to what David just said. I think the new build power plant coal will naturally take care of itself when we green the financial system. It's becoming more and more impossible for lenders. You need capital for these new plants, so that's why greening the energy goes hand in hand with greening the financial system. Because once every lending institutions take into account climate change risk, naturally the flow of capital will stop. So joining the two is most important. Now, a concrete example on gender and climate. There are examples of gender bonds that have been issued in Southeast Asia. Not a lot, just a handful. We are working now on a set of recommendations on how you can include and what kind of KPIs, what kind of indicators you can include related to gender on your sustainable finance bond. Technically, any sustainable finance product, they have climate targets attached to it or commitment attached to it. You can include a set of gender and inclusion parameters. And we're currently developing a manual on giving examples of what those gender and inclusion targets could look like. On every technical assistance program that we provide to corporates, whether it's related to energy efficiency, whether it's related to green finance, we are looking at their gender and inclusion policies and assisting them in improving, bringing them to whatever international standards are available, best practices are being developed. And interestingly, we have had good take-up. Corporates have come to us for help on energy efficiency, looking at audits of their consumption. We've offered a TA on gender and inclusions, and each time there's a positive response to that. And that's part of the positive momentum and general positive feeling that I have is that this is also on top of the agenda. So those are two concrete examples of how we're integrating gender and climate.
Great, thanks, Jules. This is a question for Sirpa, perhaps. So the question is, how do we balance accelerating clean energy transition and putting in place just an equitable mechanism so that nobody is left behind? Now, I know, Sirpa, that ETP had a deep dive to look at some of these issues. Perhaps you might want to share some highlights from that session on just transitions.
Well, I mean, I certainly can't say that I'm an expert on just transition. It's a huge topic, and it's very, very multidimensional, involving so many various stakeholders, ranging from the mines or plants and businesses around that, and of course, employees, households, the families, all the way to community leaders, municipal leaders, provincial leaders, and then to the government and whole of government, really. And in countries like, let's say, Indonesia, for instance, it is also reliant on the export earnings from coal exports. So it's extremely complex. Now, what I have been learning, though, in the past few months is the work of the World Bank, actually, which has been done in conjunction with the European Union in Europe, when Europe was struggling with its coal regions, and then also how that was extended to the Eastern European countries, and then Ukraine and the Western Balkans and so on. So basically it called for a kind of a stakeholder platform where you could bring the community representatives and the various leaders at various levels together And this platform offered an opportunity to bring everyone to a common page, to a shared understanding of the transition issues and the various support programs, the technical assistance and coordination. And once they developed a good understanding and all stakeholders were sort of on the same page, it became much more easier to carry out the conversation and for these community leaders and various stakeholders to contribute to the process and be participant in that, and that way make an effort at a greater success to integrate new industries and new livelihoods into the regular lives of these communities and the businesses also. So this is what we are thinking for Southeast Asia, and I would very much like that ETB would be involved in that, kind of setting up this kind of stakeholder platform, which would become a learning space and place where we can ensure that everyone has access to the knowledge, the same knowledge, and also in a way that they can absorb it. And this could become kind of a learning academy around the issues in the transition. So that's what we are thinking now. And I'm afraid that I don't have a single response to this very incredibly complex issue that still the coal regions, even in Europe, are struggling with as we speak. But thank you for the opportunity, Pradeep, to say those few things.
Thank you, Surpa. You're absolutely right. I mean, this is an extremely complex area, and I think it's only as we start the process of transitioning that we will learn about the issues that we'll have to actually uncover and support. We are running out of time. We've got about 3 minutes, and I do want to ask the group, perhaps I'll turn to Graham. It's a really interesting question. ASIP is a really great flagship event. These are not my words. This is the questioner's words. But it only happens once a year. Would it be possible to make it a year-round platform and combine it with elements of the CASE Energy Transition Knowledge Hub, the ETP roundtables, and the Clean Power Hub? So can we create an ongoing evergreen platform for people to collaborate and learn from each other? Graham, do you want to take a stab at it? Any ideas?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, although I think I know who asked the question, but that's okay. It's, I mean, this is part of the approach of creating an ongoing dialogue and learning platform, right? I think you have to envision going beyond just, the sort of events that we just had, though, and get to actual more of the deep dives and the trainings and equipping people to do what they need to do in the various sectors that are engaged in the clean energy transition. But there's no reason in principle that you couldn't take an event like ASEF and have that just be sort of a continuous learning platform. It probably shouldn't be the only one. There are lots of good ones, and I think we also always need to make sure that we're bringing in best practices from around the world that others capture the learning that others have taken on board, and then apply it to the specific situations in the region. But yeah, perfectly fine idea.
Thanks, Graham. Let me also invite Simon to come in on this, another topic.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Pradeep. So I just wanted to come out a little bit on this question. It's interesting because it's actually a process we have already started with Graham and others to try to discover each other's work and how can we complement and integrate each other. So we actually, as part of our knowledge hub, we want to integrate some input from the work that Graham and his team is doing, and vice versa. So because we do, as Graham pointed out in his presentation, we do know there is duplication. We do know that we want to make it as easy as possible. And I kind of want to use this as a segue to the question on just energy transition, because that part of capacity building and knowledge is also important for the just energy transition. We know that reclassification of staff, developing skills for specific type of population will play, of course, a key role on the just energy transition. And since I'm on the topic, I want to flag another program which is currently being developed, another IKI funded program, which is also led by GIZ, but also with ILO and many other stakeholders, which is focusing on exactly creating that platform of regions to facilitate knowledge sharing at the subnational level, concrete application of how can you support skill development, how can you support transition from an economy, local economy driven by coal towards other solution, and in particular inspiring from the work which has been done the past decades in Europe and other regions. Yeah, so I just wanted to flag those two things. This project will probably come online in a few months, and I think it will be very helpful to facilitate that exchange on just transition, which is obviously probably the most important topic, to encourage government to actually choose other ways than what they already know, and it's highly understandable.
Great, thanks, Simon. It's good to know that there are initiatives underway, and this continues to be something that we at ADB also discuss all the time. And unfortunately, we haven't found the right recipe to be able to create such platforms that are, everlasting and can continuously grow and expand. So it's good to know that there are other partners working on it, and we'll be happy to collaborate as appropriate. Well, we're coming to the end of our session, and all good things must come to an end, but I do want to thank our panelists for making the time, and to the listeners. All our panelists and our guests have very impressive credentials. I didn't have the time to read them out, but they're all listed in their blurbs on the websites. So please look them up and please be in touch with them. And with that, I'd like to bring this session to a close. Thank you to all our panelists and to our special guests from Cambodia and Thailand. And thank you to all the listeners who have dialed in from all over the world. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.